Hello everybody, this is Rebecca. Welcome back. This is going to be Python tutorial number 4, and today I want to show you how to import modules. And so I already have idle open, and for this one though I do want to go into File to New File so I can show you how to import a module. And this is super important because I think this is what makes Python just so versatile, is because other people have figured out how to do all kinds of things on Python, and then we are able to just basically copy and paste their code. And we will do that by importing a module. And so a module just refers to like a wrapped up package of someone else's code that we import at the very beginning of our Python script. So for instance, there is a really easy one called math. So we can import math. And so you will see oftentimes at the beginning of your Python scripts, you'll see a whole list of just all the import statements. Usually they will go up at the very top. They don't have to, you just have to import them before you use them, but usually you'll see them at the top and they'll all be grouped together. And then later we can go in and use something from that module. So for instance, we could go in and say, okay, now I want to print a variable that comes from that module. So we're going to say math.pi for pi. And again, that's just a variable that was defined inside the math module. And we're going to use open, actually no, I think we just use close parentheses. Let me try this. And then we're just going to print math.py. Now I need to save this file before I can run it, so I'm going to do a file to save as. I'll just go to my folder where I'm trying to keep things organized, and I'm going to call this one modules. And it'll put a .py extension. Again, this is just a notepad. It's just a text file, so we could have created it in Notepad if we wanted to. Just make sure it has a .py extension. All right, now that we have that file saved, we're going to go to Run and run this file. And again, our output is going to come over here to this interactive mode. And then there we see, if you remember from a long time ago, we know that 3.14, this goes on for infinity, but they've got it carried out a certain number of decimal places. But anyway, so that's the value of pi. So nothing super fancy, but it's just a very easy module to work with. Now, one other thing while we're still on this, sometimes you will see people do what's called Alias the Module, and especially if the module name is really long and then having to refer to it over and over and over. If they set up an alias for it, then that's just a shortcut, and Python has lots of different shortcuts. So in this case, if we're going to alias it as m, then every single time you refer to it, it will also have to be m. You can't mix and match. So if you're going to use an alias, you have to use that alias throughout your entire script file. So we'll go save this again and then just run it again, just to prove to you that it still works with the alias. All right, so that's the math module. Now, in this interactive mode, if you remember, we could go in and do help, and then inside of parentheses, we can actually tell it what we want help on. So if we were to say, hey, what's in that math module? Let's see, yes, this did give us a syntax error, well, a typo here. It's nothing wrong with our code, but it doesn't understand math. That's because we imported it whenever we ran our script file, but we also need to import it over here if we're going to use it in this interactive mode. So we need to import math. And then now we can go in and say, okay, give me some help on that math module. And we'll click enter. And it may show on your screen. In this case, it gives me this little button here, which I can click on, and then it will show me the rest of that text all expanded out. And so there's quite a bit of text here, but it gives you some information about math and what's in it. And so you'll notice there's a whole list of functions that come defined inside of that module. And so this goes back to math days. Some of these I've forgotten, some of them I've never heard of, but of course we have all of our cosine, sine, tangent, all that good stuff. An exponent, something raised to the power of x. Let's see, there's also one in here, just power, P-O-W. But anyway, you'll notice lots of great math functions. And then down at the bottom, there was a list of just, here's the POW, return x raised to the y power. I'll show you that one just real quick. But then down at the bottom, there were some variables that they've defined. And so this is how we were able to just refer to math.py. All right, so let me come back over here to my file and we'll go ahead and do one more print with math. So how about print? And again, I've aliased it, so I'm going to have to say m.power, P-O-W. Now again, this was a function. So inside of parentheses, we'll feed what goes into the function. And so for instance, if we say 2 comma 3, that's going to be 2 raised to the third power, which is 2 times 2 times 2. Let's see, save it. I'm going to Control S to save. I'm going to run it. And we'll see our output over here, which is off my screen, but let me scroll down for you. Yes. So here is where it's giving us 8, the value of 8. So that was my power function. All right, so that's how to import a function and how to alias a function. And there's many different functions, well, many different modules. So for instance, there's one called date time. There's all kinds of variations on this. You can do just date, just time, I believe. But here I'm going to do import date time. And then I'm going to come down here and say, okay, I want you to print. And this one's going to seem a little bit odd first. You have to do date time dot date time, because this is what they call a class inside of a module. So date time dot now. So we've got module class function, and let's see if this will work. So I'm going to Control S to save my file. We will run it. And then over here, it did print the current date and time. So of course in our military time, and that does match my system date and time. All right. So this is the beauty of Python. You can import, just hundreds of thousands of different modules that already exist. So if you go back to the website where we did the download, it was python.org. And if you go back to that website, there is one of these headers up here at the top called py, py, and this is kind of the directory of all the different modules that are out here. So I'm just going to go in and search for one called game. Now, I have not installed this or played with it, but I thought this might be a good option to show you, well, how do you use these modules if it's not on your system already. So now again, there's lots and lots of these, and some of them are old and nobody has updated them in a long time. So just be careful. Also make sure that it works on your version of Python. So for instance, we have installed, I think it was Python 3.9. Anyway, so whenever we go down and look at one of these, like this is the one I want to try. It was a guessing game, and it's fairly current. And so whenever you click on it, it should tell you kind of some history information on this, and sometimes you can get websites to who created it, where they will have more info. Here we have just a quick explanation of what it does, sort of, at least how to run it. Yeah, and here who maintains it. And it does require at least 3.6, probably 3.6 and greater. Oh yeah, right here, greater than or equal to 3.6. So we should be able to run this. All right, so now if we go in and try to import Guess or Game, what I want to do is show you, let me see if I can just copy. If we come over here and do import Guess or Game, I'm going to Control S that and then run, because I'm trying to get it to give us an error. Let's see, which it did. Let me, what is our import for that? So from import, okay. So let me copy this right here. So sometimes instead of importing the entire thing, you'll see them say, okay, from that import, from the module, import one part of it. Like for instance, we could have done that up here. So from date time, import date time. Let me show you that first before we go in and do this one. The pound sign is how we can comment something out so that it will ignore it. And so if we're going to do this way, instead of having to do date time, we can actually just do date time. Yeah, and there it goes. It did the time again. So again, that's just another option, another way. So you'll see import math. You'll see this alias sometimes. Most of the time it'll be import the entire module, but they do have the ability to, from the module, just import a certain thing. Now in this case, date time, the class is the same as the module. That's not always going to be the case. And so I think that's what's going on here with this one. All right, so now I'm still going to try to get this to raise an error. So let's save the file. We'll run this. Okay, yes. So no module found. So I can't import it until I install it. And so that's what this website is showing us. You have to do what's called a pip. You have to install it before you can import it. Now, here's the kicker. Whenever we pip, we don't do that from a script file. There may be ways you can do that, but typically we can do it from the command line. So it's a whole nother program. So not Python, but pip. And so we're going to pip install this module. Now that's going to load all the files to our computer. And just like Python, we were able to get into the Python executable. Here we're going to be able to run this pip executable as long as our environment variables are set up correctly, which they should be because we did the default install of Python. If not, you have to figure out where this pip.exe file is stored and navigate all the way into that folder before you can just say pip. But I'm going to say enter and everything hopefully will work just fine. Yes. And depending on what you pip, you'll get all kinds of output here. Hopefully things will go successfully. Here it is warning me I'm using an old version of pip. So I could go upgrade it. I can do that later though. But it was successful. So now that that is successful, now we can go back over here and our import should work. All right, hope all that makes sense. So the file, I don't have to resave anything because we haven't changed anything in our script file, but now it should allow us to import. All right, and we didn't get any kind of errors here. So now I need to finish this code of what that is going to do. So we did get it. We didn't get any errors with our import. So now how do we launch the game? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get rid of all these. And then let's go back to that website where it told us a little bit. And so we just did that import. Now we need to go in and I'll just copy. Let's see, I need to grab that M. I'll just type it. M and then paste. And then let me get this next line. All right, and then I have not done this before, so we're going to see together what this game does. So now I'm going to save that file and then run. All right, so here the game is starting. Follow these steps and I will guess your result. Press enter to continue. Think a number greater than 0. Do not tell me. Press enter. All right, I'm going to think of 12. Multiply your number times 2. Oh, okay, that makes it 24. Add 4. That'll make 28. Divide your result by 2. Let's see, that gives me what, 14? Last step, subtract to your result the number you initially thought. All right, I was on 14. I think I'd originally said 12. So that gives me 2. All right, let's see if it's going to get it right. Yay, your result is 2. So that's kind of clever. All right, but it did work. It did work. All right, so just to recap, you know, these modules are what make Python. I think that's what makes Python so incredibly versatile, because there are so many different modules. And just research your modules, make sure they're tested. You know, you'll know whenever you Google something if a lot of people are using it, and then make sure it's up to date and it works on your version of Python. All right, thanks so much for watching.